Welcome to the Salon Scoop, a podcast by Salon S.O.S. I'm your host, Scott Moon, the founder of Salon S.O.S, and I'm obsessed with helping salon professionals live their best life. Welcome to another episode of the Salon Scoop podcast. We are excited to be back. Today, we are going lighthearted. We've got some fun stories to share with you. As always, I'm here with our co-host and producer extraordinaire, Sarah Perrin. Sarah, why don't you tell our listeners what we've got in store for them today?
Absolutely, Scott. So we've got some doozies today. We are shop talking salon owner horror stories. Every salon owner has those nightmare days that you wouldn't wish upon anyone, but unfortunately, those bad days happen to everyone. We hope that you get a bit of a kick out of some of these extreme stories and also can commiserate with the salon owners that they happen to, because misery loves company, right?
Yes, it certainly does. And I know we've got some great stories. We've actually picked out three that we've gotten from different listeners and salon professionals. We try to pick three that have different themes and topics to them. So we've got one that's around sort of partnership and ownership issues, one around actual technical issues with clients, and one in and around HR staffing issues. This last one is a real doozy. Definitely stick around. It involves stalking, vandalism, police. There's a whole lot to it. But Sarah, I mean, you're a salon owner and you've been obviously an esthetician for several years yourself. You must have experienced a bunch of crazy stories. Do you have any particular one that stands out in your mind that you could share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a few doozies happen to myself, but this is the one that I always go back to. So this happened back in 2014. So if you can just picture it, like COVID was not a thing, nothing like that. And it was the week before Christmas. So at the beginning of the week, I started feeling unwell. And like I say, I had, I think, 6 12-hour days back-to-back bookings with clients. And I was like, I cannot.
It's the Christmas rush.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I was like, I cannot afford to get sick. So I think it was on the Monday, I was like, I am very unwell. So I ended up going to the doctor, like very unwell.
Your first mistake is saying I cannot afford to get sick, because as soon as we say something like that, we automatically start to feel
put it out there.
I think I feel a tickle in the back of my throat.
Yeah, I manifested it for sure. Absolutely. That's what happened. So it was funny. I ended up going to the doctor and he was like, you just have, the common flu kind of thing. So, just like runny nose, I wasn't feeling well, headache, cough, all that fun stuff. So I was like, well, it's the week before Christmas. So what do you suggest I do? And he suggested I take the week off, which obviously was not an option. So I was like, okay,
like,
what's your
doc? You don't understand my world.
Will you call my clients so that they can yell at you instead of me? So anyways, I was like, okay, like, what's my second option? And he was like, well, if you deck yourself out in PPE, so if you get a mask, if you wear gloves, if you do all that good stuff, then you should be fine. You're not going to get any of your clients sick, right? So I was like, okay. So I went into the first day of work and I've got my mask on and my gloves. And of course, this is 2014. COVID is not a thing. I looked like like I was essentially wearing a full hazmat suit, right?
Well, this is wild because you just mentioned PPE. Honestly, I had never heard that terminology until the whole COVID pandemic, right?
Like, I hadn't either, actually.
Gloves and masks, whatever, but like the specific PPE, but it actually was a thing back then. I could just imagine what people would have thought because it was not commonplace whatsoever.
Oh, definitely not. I stood out like a sore thumb, right? People are walking in and being like, should I be here right now? I'm like, probably not.
Is there some like nuclear energy leak or something that's been going on in the building?
Exactly.
Are you testing out some of these like new I don't know, hydraulic?
Yeah, just something's not right in the air, right? So it was hilarious. I had one client come in and she sat down and looked at me like, should you be here right now? Like, you're obviously sick. And I was like, well, honestly, no, I probably shouldn't be here. I should probably be home and resting. But you try canceling on people a week before Christmas, right? She looks me dead in the face. She's like, oh, I would have been so pissed off if you canceled on me right before Christmas. I'm like, oh, I know, girlfriend. That's why I didn't do it. And then she looks at me and says, but I will be equally as pissed off if you get me sick right before Christmas.
Oh,
so I was just, what do you want from me? Right? Like, I was just like, what do I do? So it was kind of just one of those, like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't situations. But yeah, I always go back to that because you just can't win. So
did anyone get sick that you know of?
No, I was decked out. They're probably, the funny thing was about it too, she came in, she's all upset. I'm like, you were just across the street at this like germ infested cesspool of a mall right before Christmas. I'm like, if you're going to catch something, it's probably going to be there and not with me, again, completely protected against you. So,
Yeah.
oh
Well,
well.
and back in those days as well, right? Like, I mean, we didn't really think twice. I used to work in an office environment, and I mean, people would come in like just with a huge box of tissues. They'd be hacking up a lungs, coughing, sneezing, and it was sort of like, yeah, just like keep your distance. But it was very common, and it was kind of like, well, you know what, this is just what happens. So you
Well,
must have been a wreck at the end of that week, though.
oh, absolutely. By the end of Christmas week, I'm always a bit of a wreck. But yeah, no, it was crazy. Like, I'm like, it's funny to see now how things, because like I used to work with, I'm one of those people, I'm just chronically sick. Plus, I'm an esthetician. So I'm touching people's hands and their eyes and all the gross places on them. So I'm always getting sick.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would come to work again with the full blown flu, with strep throat, with anything you can imagine, and be, you know, like you're like hacking and breathing in people's. I'm like, how was that okay? So if anything good came out of the pandemic, it's like we all realize how disgusting we are as humans, and we're keeping an eye on that a bit more.
And we might be a little bit more cautious about not spreading germs and getting other people sick,
Exactly.
even with just a cold or a cough, because those are really pain to deal with. So
totally,
anyway.
Absolutely.
Crazy. All right, well, let's jump into one of our listener stories here. I'll take the lead. So unfortunately, none of our listeners were bold enough to want their names or salon names mentioned. So everything is coming in that they've asked for anonymity. So we're going to call this particular salon owner, we'll call her Mary. And Mary was opening up a new salon with her best friend. This goes back, I don't know, I think they said like 8 or 9 years ago or something. Anyhow, so they decided that they want to open up a new salon, but obviously it's a struggle. They're both, I think, in their like very early 20s, if not late teens, like, so first venture in this path. And they were a little bit struggling to find a location, to find the money to be able to do it. And kind of at the last second, as they're looking at different venues, Mary's ex-boyfriend, this is key to the story, ex-boyfriend's sister comes, who was also, I guess, a service provider. I think she was an esthetician, based on what I can see. Said, oh, you know what, like my friend and I, we were thinking of getting involved in something, like we could join you and we have a little bit of money to put up. And all of a sudden, the four of them were 2 weeks later into a lease and opening up this sort of basement salon. Challenge, though, is, you can imagine, putting together a kind of a legal agreement on this company. These two sort of newbies didn't have the same amount of funds to put into it. So to actually make an equal partnership, Mary, we're coming back to Mary, her dad actually fronted some money to these sort of sketchy friends that got in on the deal. I don't know. This is the information that got sent in to us, right? So here we go. So now that you've got these like two sketchy friends that are loaning money from Mary's dad in order to get into business with them and sort of sign on. They're in this basement sort of space. They sign a 1-year lease to kind of get started up. And actually, for the first year, things go relatively well. They hire a few employees. So at the end of that first year lease, they're thinking, okay, you know what, like now we're kind of on the roll, and let's commit to a 3-year lease. We can get a better rate and sort of extend it out, because they could see kind of a future. So they've got a 3-year lease all of a sudden, and 6 months later, these two sort of sketchy friends, I don't know if there was an additional fallout with that ex-boyfriend, like who knows what the cause was. Friends decide that they want out. 6 months into this kind of renewed 3-year lease, they want to go and just kind of work by themselves from home, kind of sort of do their own thing, and they're asking to be bought out of the deal, right? Like,
because we all know how much money salons bring in the first year, right? There was probably time to spread around,
yeah,
right?
So there's kind of 4 owners that are all like in debt, putting in loans to start the company. And these two now think that they deserve to be bought out because they're selling their shares in the company. So obviously, I mean, I can't imagine all the conversations that that must have been had, and sort of the evil evil stink eyes that were passed
I'm kidding, hey.
along the way.
Probably a
Right?
lot of
But
passive aggressive comments and evil side eyes. Yeah.
yeah, I could only imagine. But at the end of the day, ultimately, they sort of figured out that there was no money, you know, in the company to pay out an actual sort of, you know, share. But legally, in order to get them out of the, you know, of the shareholder agreement, you had to buy back the shares. So they bought them out for $1 per
That's good.
I guess each shareholder sold their
Yeah.
shares back for $1. But ultimately, you know, the two owners that remained, Mary and her best friend, had to take on all of that additional debt themselves. And they're still here kind of like just a little over 1 year into their first venture in their super early 20s. And yeah, I guess a little bit wiser. So when we say, you know what, like wisdom comes with age, you know, and experience. This was definitely a key learning experience for them. They thought it out. Obviously, I think with their, you know, they had about five staff members at the time that they were able to kind of mull through. But good news is they learned from the lesson. When that lease did come to an end, they kind of got completely out of that lease, completely out of that building, started up, new space, new name, kind of rebranded the whole thing. And today they are running a successful salon together. So all's well that ends well, I guess, in this in this particular case.
This story gave me a bit of PTSD because I also opened a business with multiple partners to start, and it did not work out well. Yeah, mixing business and pleasure sometimes isn't the best idea. There can be too many cooks in the kitchen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen like best friendships go very, very sour, right? Like it's hard to go into business with, you know, either close friends or family members. It can cause a lot of strain. So definitely something to be careful of. And I'm sure that many of you listeners can commiserate with stories of your first ownership experiences. So
Absolutely. Okay, well, this next story I personally felt triggered by because it was written in by a lash technician, which I also am. So yeah, this one definitely kind of got me in the feels and was making me cringe because I can only imagine if it happened to me.
oh man, tell me more.
Yes, I will. I'm going to read this from first person actually because the email was written in really well. So I'm just going to read it from her point of view and we're going to go from there.
Nice.
All right. So I was working on a lash client in my aesthetics room when one of my employees ran in frantically, which a great start, right? She said there was an emergency in one of the other aesthetic rooms. This makes me laugh because again, we're in a salon, like what emergency is happening, right? Yeah, exactly. What has happened? A million things crossed my mind as I rushed over to see what was going on. And when I got to her room, I was shocked. This poor girl had accidentally dipped her pinky into the lash adhesive that dries in literally 0.5 seconds. And as she applied the lash extension, her pinky attached to the lash extensions.
So
okay.
This is the actual, wait a second, you gotta sort of, here, give me some visual.
I was going to say, I can spell this out. I was going to say, and even here, I'll read this next part and then I will give you a visual of how this could happen because I am picturing it happening. And I think I have had many close calls to this as well. So it says, in her panic, she tried to gently remove her pinky from the lashes with her tweezers in the other hand, only to get the tweezers stuck in the lashes as well. So what I'm picturing happening here,
oh my gosh.
I'm going to try and explain this
like playing with
as well
super
as
glue.
I can. Yeah. Oh, and I'm not kidding you. I've actually had like a couple, like I've definitely dipped my pinky in and accidentally gotten it stuck on somebody's skin, which in and of itself is terrifying, but it's meant to stick on hair, right? So if it sticks to the lash, like that's the point of it. It's going to stick very well, right? So I can picture this being like, again, because I have dipped my pinky and you're picking up with your, pick up your right hand, your left hand, whatever your dominant hand is. And then you keep the adhesive very close to it. So I can just picture that accidental pinky dip. And then when you go to place the lash on, it probably just like lightly brushed, but I'm talking like these adhesives dry in 0.5 to 2 seconds. Like you do not have a lot of time to work with it. And then I could just picture her taking her isolating tweezers in the other hands and being like, oh, I can get myself out of this. But then the horror when you realize that that is also stuck and you are now handless, like you cannot move either of your hands without ripping out a chunk of this client's lashes. Yeah, I have mad anxiety right now just thinking about it.
I mean, I'm a guy, so I've never really had, sort of lash work done, but I can only imagine like sitting there as the client. Like, what is the client feeling when they are sensing this extreme panic from the lash specialist and people all around coming frantically, and I'm the client thinking, oh my gosh, like you've got your
Am I going
hands
blind?
like stuck to my eyes, like
Yes.
what's gonna happen to me? Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. So
Okay,
yeah,
so what
I can
happens?
only
What happens?
imagine that. All right. So back to the story. It says, oh God, stuck with both hands. So it says, it was a super easy fix. I applied adhesive remover to the stuck spots and she removed and reapplied those lashes. But this employee was absolutely mortified that the situation got so out of control. Yeah, that's about as out of control as it could be, because if you didn't have somebody else's hands to apply that remover, I don't know what your options would be. That would
Well, yeah,
be,
what do you do if you just work out of your home or something and you have a client and you've got both hands like glued to their essentially lashes and face? Like you can't even
just, there's no,
call for help on your phone.
no,
Oh,
exactly
this is
right.
where
Oh
you need like a Alexa or something.
God. Yeah. SOS.
Alexa, we just
I actually am also picturing too. I'm like, how did she contact the employee that then ran into the other employees? Like, right? Like, I'm like,
yeah.
was she just screaming bloody murder from her lash? Or being like,
I mean, that's all that you would probably do, right? In that
yeah.
situation, you just start like yelling for help.
Oh my
And
God. Which again, in a salon, what is happening that is that dire, right? So you're like, something's awry for sure.
oh my gosh.
The client left happy and we all laughed about the misfortune of the situation, but thank goodness there that we were able to rectify without any major issues. Cause yeah, that could have gone a lot worse. There could have been a lot of torn lashes out and probably a lot of discomfort. So I'm glad that it went that way for them.
Goodness gracious. Yeah. Eesh.
That's funny. And then you're always mindful of that pinky from there on out. You will never dip your pinky in that adhesive again.
Well, that's it. And now I'm definitely never going to go for lash service. So
that's what did it for you too. Okay.
that's my learning.
Yeah. That's good.
Crazy. All right, so let's finish off with our last story that was sent in. This one is an absolute doozy. Like I could not believe I've read it over so many times because it just like floors me. So
yeah, absolutely. I know I felt the same way.
Same thing. I'm gonna be reading sort of part of it here because I don't want to miss out on any of the details. I think everyone's gonna love this. So first of all, again, anonymous. So I'm gonna call this this particular person Kathy. All right. I like putting a name to it. So Kathy finds out. We're gonna start. Kathy's employee. Okay, a stylist. This is where it all starts. The stylist snoops into the client files, okay, to find the personal home address of a client that she worked on. Okay, so this is Kathy's employee that snoops into the files and finds the personal home address and goes to the client's home address, rings on the door, and demands a bigger tip because she was unhappy with the tip that was left. Like
the audacity
right off the bat.
Yeah, I was going to say that in and of itself is a horror story. Just that one little paragraph. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm like, I have never heard of this before, ever. Like, who does that? You hunt them down at their house because you didn't like the tip that they gave you? That's pretty insane. So
very aggressive.
Needless to say, Kathy, the salon owner, when they find this out, because the client sort of complained, fires the employee, right?
As you do, absolutely.
Complete inappropriate conduct, and whatnot. So great, fires the employee. Employee clearly not happy. So that evening, the employee comes by the salon with her boyfriend, and they toss a massive rock, it says here, a boulder the size of my head, through the salon window, because the employee is frustrated and angry at Kathy, the salon owner. Now, the good news is that Kathy has a video camera security system at her salon. So all of this actually is on tape. She's able to see it because it happened overnight, right? So she comes in the morning, and I guess she sees this like, huge hole in the front window that's been smashed through, and she's like, what on earth happened? And she's able to go through the tape and see the video of the employee with the employee's boyfriend tossing this huge rock through the window. So
like, if you're gonna be dumb, be smart about it, like know your surroundings. If you're gonna throw a boulder through a window that you work at, maybe you should know there is a camera watching it and recording your every move.
Yeah. So so here's kind of what happens, and I'm going to sort of read this part. She says, to add insult to injury, the sister of that employee that we've been talking about was also working at the salon. And when the sister found out that of this whole situation and that Kathy had fired, her, the sister promptly quit. Okay, so now she's got both sisters, employees, upset. Kathy gets called. It was actually the property manager I'm seeing here that saw the issue with the glass and called the police and called Kathy. So Kathy rushes to the salon in her PJs. The police are there, staring at the front of the salon. There's like, the glass is broken. And out of nowhere, the sister drives by, gets out of the car. It's got to be like totally sassy. Doesn't say a word. Holds her keys to the salon. I've got to read this. Yeah, holds her keys and her work blazer up above her head and dramatically drops it at Kathy's feet like a mic drop.
She might drop. I was going to say she might drop her keys. Really?
She might drop the keys and the blazer. I guess they had a dress
for extra dramatic effect.
Drops at her feet, turns around, gets in the car, and drives away. Oh
my gosh.
So apparently the police ended up going to her house as well to see if she might have been involved, because it kind of made it look like she was pretty angry and had motive to be involved in all this. So that's
an actual nightmare. Like I have absolutely had to like being called to my salon from the police for one reason or another, a break-in, a alarm go off, whatever it is. But I can only imagine just the salt in the wounds of that to come and then just have somebody come and drop their keys in front of you like that. I'm just like, oof.
It's just the full drama of it all. But it all starts with going to a client's house to demand a bigger tip. Like,
that's absolute insane. I could go onto a whole other wormhole of tipping and everything like that, and why anybody thinks they deserve that is just beyond me.
Yeah, seriously. Anyway, so these are the stories that came to us for this week that we sort of crafted. Hope that you enjoyed listening to some of these. Hopefully it sort of triggered in your mind either something that happened to you, or maybe someone that you know in the industry. Like you might be a sales consultant and you visit salons everywhere. You might have come across some crazy stories as well. We want to hear from you, so please feel free to send in your crazy salon horror stories, client stories, staff stories, whatever it might be. Send them in. We want to hear, and you know what, we'll be doing more of these types of episodes as well in the future. We'd love to sort of share new and exciting crazy stories with everyone. Let's commiserate all together, and hopefully be able to have a little bit of fun with it, but at the same time maybe learn some important lessons from it as well, right? So you can send us into us by email, info@salonsos.ca, or you can hit us up on Instagram. Just DM us. We are at salon.s.o.s. So love to hear from you. Send it in. Thank you so much for listening again to this episode, and we look forward to catching you next time.
See you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to the Salon Scoop podcast. This show is produced by Salon S.O.S, a digital marketing agency by industry professionals for industry professionals. If you want simple and affordable solutions for any of your salon marketing needs, such as websites, client loyalty, Google search rankings, social media, or more, come visit us at salonsos.ca or on Instagram at salon.s.o.s.